major breach or a major flooding of the local area. I remember being in that house. I remember the elderly couple that lived in it, and I even remember having tea in it. As a child, it's an unusual type of a house in the sense that you go in at the top and the bottom story of it, where they had some gardens, is way down here underneath it, which you can't really see, but you get the gist of the one story at ground level and the second story down where we are at the bottom of the steps, heading for the archway under the Rye Water Aqueduct. The arch under the River Rye, I would suggest that caution is advisable because it's a bit of a mucky track, as you can see on one side, and Kildare County Council have put in these steps, but as you can see this one is gone and they're not very often used, so a little bit of caution and good footwear would be required. We just walk over here to the waterfall as we hear it, and it's actually a man-made waterfall that's used to help control the level of the canal. So if there's an overflow or the levels are up on the canal, this is where the water flows, and it flows out into this stream and obviously links up with the River Rye somewhere. So that is a man-made waterfall. We just zoom in on it there and let you have a look at it. And down into that stream and out into the River Rye. So we are now down under the Rye Water Aqueduct, and this is the River Rye, which flows south towards the Liffey where they meet in Leixlip, and you might just be able to make out the arch. And the canal, believe it or not, is way up there. And this is the arch where the River Rye flows under the canal. It's that simple. And the stonework and the masonry of the embankment. Now, this is where everybody could get an action shot. There we are. Now you're under the arch of the Rye Water Aqueduct with the River Rye flowing underneath it and the canal above you. So we're just approaching Louisa Bridge, and Louisa Bridge is more than just a crossing, it's a central hub in history of engineering and modern commuting life in Leixlip. It serves as a primary gateway to the Rye Water Aqueduct and the Leixlip Spa. Lady Louisa Connolly, the bridge is named after. Lady Louisa Connolly, 1743 to 1821, one of the famous Lennox sisters and the wife of Thomas Connolly of nearby Castletown House. The Connolly family owned much of the land in Leixlip and Selbridge. Lady Louisa was a major figure in Irish social and architectural history, overseeing the development of the Castletown estate and other projects. Louisa Bridge is the only bridge on the Royal Canal to be named after a female. Just walking under Louisa Bridge here now, walking west towards Maynooth. and the canal before us into Maynooth. So we'll do that walk now. So here we are at the Maynooth Bridge, just west of Louisa Bridge. So for those of you that are wondering who Maynooth is, it's named after Matthew Goff, 1901 to 1956, a legendary figure in Irish sport and a leak slip native. He was a star all back in the County Kildare team during their golden era of the 1920s and 30s. Major achievements: Goff won 2 All-Ireland medals, 1927 and 1928, and 6 consecutive Leinster titles. Notably, he was part of the first ever team to be presented with the Sam Maguire Cup in 1928. He was born Matthew Goff. He was primarily known to the public as Goff. When the bridge was being named in 2006, local authorities chose to use the Goff, G-O-F-F spelling to match his sporting legendary. The bridge was officially named on March the 18th, 2006 to mark the 50th anniversary of Matt Goff's death. A plaque was unveiled at the site to commemorate his contribution to Gaelic football and the local community. So we're going to head on now westwards up to the 13th Lock and D Bridge, which has a story in it in itself. So we'll just head off there now and head west towards D Bridge. So we are here at the 13th Lock and the Royal Canal D Bridge, D-E-E-Y Bridge, named after one of the directors of the Royal Canal Company, and reputedly haunted. But it is also important in its own way that it is the 13th lock, which means it's the first lock after some 12 and a half or 13 miles of canal from the 12th lock in Blanchardstown and through the deep sinking. Train just coming in there, you might be able to see it. So, located at D Bridge between Leixlip and Maynooth, the 13th Lock is one of the most famous stops on the Royal Canal Way. Legend has it that the 13th Lock has a long-standing reputation of being haunted, and canal boatmen refused to stay here overnight. In the 1800s and the early 1900s, boatmen were notoriously superstitious and would refuse to moor their barges at the 13th Lock overnight, fearing the spooks. The spook of the 13th Lock is folklore inspired by the poem Arthur Griffith, and subsequently gave its name to a well-known Irish contemporary folk rock band, The Spook of the 13th Lock. D Bridge at the 13th Lock is named after Robert D, who was one of the founding directors of the Royal Canal Company, established in 1789. Robert D was a prominent Dublin figure of the late 18th century. He was a solicitor and a member of the Dublin elite who joined the breakaway group of disgruntled investors from the Grand Canal Company to form the Royal Canal Company. His name is immortalised on the bridge due to his administrative and financial role in the canal's very early and expensive development. Dee Bridge marks the start of the most difficult engineering challenge on the entire line when you're heading east. Robert Dee and his fellow directors had to manage spiralling costs and blasting through miles of solid limestone at the deep sinking, which ultimately led to the company's bankruptcy in 1813. So we have just arrived at Pikes Bridge and Harbour, and across the road from us there, you will see it in a few minutes, are the gates of Carton Estate. You just walk out this way and you might be able to see it there in the distance. Way down there where those two cars are the gates into Carton House. So Pikes Bridge, or Pike Bridge, or Wharton Bridge, Wharton Bridge, is an historic cut stone bridge just located east of Maynooth. Like other landmarks we've mentioned, it is a key site along the Royal Canal Greenway. Built around 1793, Pike Bridge is architecturally significant because it spans both the Royal Canal and the Midland and Great Western Railway, with two distinct stone arches. The bridge has two elliptical arches, one for the canal and towpath and the other for the double-line railway tracks. It is considered a fine example of 18th century stone masonry, featuring high-quality rubble stone and ashlar surrounds that remain in excellent condition today. The Duke of Leinster's influence on the bridge is because it's situated directly opposite the entrance to Carton House, the home of the Dukes of Leinster. This location is a result of this expensive rerouting created by the Rye Water Aqueduct and the deep sinking. The Duke of Leinster wanted the canal to run past the front gates, leading to the construction of the bridge to access his private land. It is also known for the Battle of Pikes Bridge, a dramatic conflict during the Irish Civil War on December the 1st, 1922, when an ambush of anti-treaty led by Patrick Mullaney ambushed a Free State Army lorry that broke down near the bridge. After a brief but intense firefight, the Free State soldiers were captured and held at the nearby Grange William House. The event is a well-remembered piece of local history in Maynooth and Leixlip. So we'll now continue on westwards to Maynooth, and we have one more stop, and that stop is Mullen Bridge or Mullen Bridges. So we're just going to go on now and walk on towards Maynooth. So we are just arriving in Maynooth at Mullen Bridge, often referred to as Mullen's Bridges. It's an historic single arch bridge in Maynooth situated at the eastern entrance to the town's harbour. It is a key landmark where the modern town meets the 18th century engineering of the Royal Canal. The bridge was built between 1790 and 1795 as part of the Royal Canal's initial development. It features a classical elliptical arch. This is the new bridge, by the way, we're looking at, folks, now at the moment and not talking about, and is made of local limestone. The craftsmanship is notable for its handcrafted lime mortar joints, which have survived for over 230 years. For nearly 2 centuries, it carried the main Strafford Road, the R406, over the canal and the railway line. However, due to its narrow width and increasing weight of modern traffic, it became a bottleneck. The bypass and preservation in 1995, a modern, wider concrete bridge was constructed, which we have just walked under alongside the original Mullen Bridge. Today it serves as a pedestrian and cyclist bridge. It provides a quiet, elevated vantage point to having looked down into Duke's Harbour and watched the trains passing through Maynooth railway station. Interestingly, while the arch over the canal remains, the second arch that once spanned the railway was removed during the modern roadworks to allow for eventual electrification of the railway line. Like many bridges across the canal, it was named after a figure associated with the canal company, Thomas Mullen. He was a shareholder and director and a prominent shareholder of the Royal Canal Company during its construction. This naming follows the tradition seen elsewhere on the canal, such as Binns Bridge, named after John Binns, and Newcomen Bridge, named after Sir William Gladwyn Newcomen, whom we will discuss later. We just walk into the Duke's Harbour, or Maynooth Harbour, as it's known as. And that will conclude the walk from Louisa Bridge to Maynooth. So we have arrived in Maynooth, the harbour in Maynooth, commonly known as Maynooth Harbour, or to give it its correct name, Duke's Harbour. A triangular shaped basin on the Royal Canal in Maynooth in County Kildare. It is one of the most recognisable points on the canal. Connection to the Duke of Leinster, the harbour was named after William Robert Fitzgerald, the second Duke of Leinster, who was the primary shareholder in the Royal Canal Company. As discussed with the Rywater Aqueduct, the Duke insisted that the canal be diverted through Maynooth to serve his estate at Carton House. The harbour was built in 1796 to facilitate the transport of coal and turf directly to the Duke's estate and to bolster the economy of the Maynooth, which the Fitzgeralds had largely helped to develop. Unlike most rectangular canal harbours, Duke's Harbour is roughly triangular. It features a small central island, which is a frequent nesting spot for local swans. The harbour is located directly opposite Maynooth train station. This proximity made it a vital transport hub for the 19th century, when passengers would transfer between the canal and flyboats and the railway. You can still see the old stone-cut edges of the harbour and nearby Bond Bridge, which carries the road over the canal. So that is Duke's Harbour for you, and that concludes our walk just from Louisa Bridge to Maynooth, and there is a fair bit indeed in that walk. So someday we'll get out about again and do another walk, so hope you enjoyed that, folks, and thanks for watching.